Hello, my lovelies, and welcome to the Heartland Hot Dish Podcast. This is where we come to the table and rediscover the connection and meaning to our food and culinary treasures of the Great Lakes region. Join us as we discover the traditions and stories woven into the fabric of the Heartland cuisine, from the iconic dishes that define the Midwest to the hidden gems waiting to be discovered. We'll take you on a mouth-watering journey through the diverse culinary landscape of the Great Lakes area. Get ready to indulge your senses and ignite your appetite as we explore the rich tapestry of flavors that make up the Heartland Hot Dish. All right, my lovelies. So we're going to delve deep into the Hungarian Jewish foodways today with our very own Sophie. Sophie, welcome.
Thank you.
We've got Marcy here as well for my comic relief of the fun that we're going to have. So some of the reason we're here today on the podcast is to talk about this upcoming dinner that we've got at the Roadhouse. But the fact that this podcast is going to be up in foreverness. Why the Hungarian food? Why is this dinner happening? What's the reasoning behind it for you, Sophie?
It's happening because I came to the United States when I was 15, 16 years old.
Okay.
Originally, tennis is what brought me here.
Tennis superstar.
Golden years, you know.
There you go. We've all had those golden years that have faded away a little bit.
I lost a little bit now, but
She's doing today's podcast with a broken rib, so she's feeling the pain of getting older as the years move by.
Things don't quite bend the way
Yeah,
they
yeah.
do.
Our body doesn't recover so quickly. Okay, so you came here for tennis. Whereabouts did you come when you came to the US originally?
I came to Kansas first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, and then went to Florida, South America. Yeah.
Where in South America were you?
I all over Mexico, Costa Rica, Ecuador.
Why traveling so much so quickly?
Just
Tournaments,
tournaments.
that was
junior-
it? And you
junior
just go there, stay there, and then move to the
junior
next
Grand
one?
Slams and yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
How far up did you get in the tennis world?
I was junior Grand Slam level, and then WTA 200, almost made it to 100.
Very cool. So when I was a kid, I went to a music school, and so tennis was one of our sports, and I like tennis. It's not so big over here. Did you play tennis as a kid, Marcy? Is it a thing?
So
Pickleball has taken over now.
pickleball has taken over. So I wasn't very athletically inclined as a kid. I was
Sure.
more of like your artsy, like drama, like to paint and so on and so forth. But the one thing I did like was tennis. I loved my tennis lessons. Probably because even though I probably was nowhere near as good as Sophie.
Not us combined are not coming
Yeah,
anywhere close to Sophie. I'm okay with those.
I was able to get the ball over the net. So
Sure. I now do it occasionally. So we got some free tennis rackets, and I was trying to do it with my kids. And I'm like, wow, I am wildly unfit. Pickleball is definitely more my speed of my world. Okay, so you traveled a lot of America, South America in that world. When did you transition out of the tennis and then now into like the food world for yourself?
I was about 19 when I went back home and finished high school, and then I decided to go with being a college athlete.
Okay.
And then I studied in Kansas, studied at Eastern Michigan University with a tourism catering hotel
Okay.
major. I was going to go home, but then I met my now husband, so my plans
Where's home
changed.
exactly? Where is home?
Page,
Page. Okay.
Yeah,
Where's
it's-
Page in Hungary?
3 hours from Budapest.
Okay. See,
Uh,
that's helpful.
Borders with Croatia, and
Yep.
fun fact, it is actually in between Budapest and Dombovar, which Marcy visited before. It used to be a city
nice
that
small world.
you reach, and then you would go call my mom or whoever friends that, hey, we're in Dombovar, so we are like 40 minutes away. That was always like a kind of like a signal.
Yeah.
But yeah, it borders with Croatia. Zagreb is about 2 hours away.
Okay.
It's a very old, ancient city,
Big? Like, what's the
Um,
population-ish size?
5th biggest city
Okay.
in Hungary.
Okay.
And it has one of the best law schools in almost in whole Europe, and
Okay.
medical center.
Very cool.
Yeah, so I grew up there.
Okay. And so then Kansas was now home. So you met a husband, not from Kansas originally. Where was he
is
from?
from here. He was born in Detroit.
Yeah, you're a U of M girl, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you are.
His mom's side is Polish, and then his dad's side is Irish, Scottish, and Finnish. But
That's
he went,
basically British at that point. That all that means is they're British
They're
because we've been invaded by all of those nations many, many, many times.
yeah, he went to UFM. He studied history, Eastern European history, philosophy, and minored in law. So
Okay. Okay. So then Kansas, eventually making it back to Michigan with him. Whereabouts in Michigan are you now? So where are you based out of?
We used to live in Ann Arbor for like 5 years, and then we decided to give up the city life and move more on the country.
Okay.
Dexter.
Dexter. So
Yeah.
have you got a little bit of land?
Yeah, 2 acres.
Any farming going on?
My
Says the
husband
farmer.
tries to, but
Not so much.
has the passion, but doesn't have the time, But it's beautiful out. It's 5 minutes from here.
So you came back, you're in Michigan, and now you've been working at the Roadhouse. This is one of those passion projects to get one of these special dinners on. And I think one of the things, Marcy, probably people don't know. I mean, the Roadhouse has done many. Do you know the number? Because there used to be a running number of the number of special dinners.
There used to be a running number, and I remember when I took over as the marketing manager from your wife, Joni.
Yeah.
She had all the posters.
We did. I have
they were
some of them
numbered.
here. There's some in the top of the barn back there. There's a running number of all the special dinners. But like, I think what people don't understand, some people think a special dinner, you might do a week or 2 weeks of research to get them up there. It is sometimes multiple years. It's sometimes trips. It's a lot of R&D that goes into them. And so those 4 or 5, maybe 6 special dinners the Roadhouse does in a year, they are very special because they've usually come from someone in that
And
world.
they used to be monthly. We do them
Yep.
quarterly now.
Yep.
So they used to be monthly. I remember when we hit the 200 mark.
Yep.
That was several years ago. So we're several hundred in at this point.
Yeah.
I can't tell you exactly how many because I stopped. I stopped putting the numbers.
I'm gonna give you a little side quest here later on
To
and find
find
out,
out?
find the number.
Okay.
Joni can help you with where at least the handoff went and where it was. So I think that it's important to know, like, it's not a small task. Like, when we've done special dinners with the Roadhouse, so I used to be the head chef there, it was a definite passion project from an individual employee or myself or one of the sous chefs. But the time it takes to get all the things together, I think you've probably been living that pain and passion at the same time, whether it's writing the menus, which seems like the most obvious thing, researching the dishes, but then it's menu design. It's about the guests and who and when and what dates we're going to do those things. How's that been going?
I say, generally speaking, it's going good.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie. There are moments where I feel stressed out. I feel the pressure. I feel tired. But at the same time, I'm starting to learn just to like take it all in, see the good side of it,
Yeah.
and just enjoy those moments because I wrote up my vision too, and I want to remember back that at the end I wasn't stressed out. I wasn't like tired of my mind, but I actually really enjoyed the leading up moments.
How long do you think you've been working on it now? How long do you think this has been going on for?
A few months.
A few months? Marcy, how long do you think?
It's been closer to a year.
Yeah,
That,
right? That's
that
what I
we've
thought.
even had this conversation.
Yeah, the start of that game is really
It's-
basically
Yeah. I joke with Sophie that it's kind of like preparing for your wedding. You're like you
Sure.
you become kind of like the bridezilla. You're pulling your hair out. You're asking people for help, and when they're not immediately available to help you, you're kind of like.
And I think like this is your first one. Like after you've done, I mean, I was at the Roadhouse for 5-ish years. You get used to all those moving parts. When it's your first
When
one,
it's your
you
first
don't know what those
one.
are. So I think even to get there are lots of people I remember back in the day that would start those that wouldn't even get there. So there's a menu that's based around Hungarian dishes. I'm guessing a lot of them are your childhood favorite friends, favorite friends being your favorite recipes for you. What do you think sticks out that you want people to take from it? So when they've left that dinner, they wake up the next morning and they're like, oh, this. What is that like take home thing that you really want them to experience?
Just thinking back about my vision, I really want the smell of the dish.
Okay.
Because that smell is just so heartwarming that you bring that from your family,
Sure.
from those recipes. And my grandma that passed away this summer.
I'm sorry.
And
What was her name?
Ilona.
Ilona. Very
Yeah,
nice.
she was 94.
94. That's a very good innings. So what's that smell for you?
Hungary is very known for pepper, paprika,
Okay, yeah.
vegetables, tomatoes. We very carefully, prepare it, cook it. So that smell, the paprika powder, because I love paprika. I
Is it
put-
the smoked paprika, straight paprika, or a bit of both?
It is the straight paprika.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So
like to use that more with these dishes, these authentic dishes.
Yeah.
The stew and the fish soup as well. The cabbage, it just gives it a more plain, easier taste.
So that next morning, I'm waking up and I can remember those smells, that paprika smell. What about from the history and the things you're going to talk about at the dinner? What kind of things do you think you want people to try to take away memories of those kind of things for you?
For me, I'm not I'm not I'm not Jewish.
Okay.
I'm Catholic. My whole family is Catholic.
Okay. But these are a lot of Jewish recipes, right?
Yes,
Yep.
Hungarian Jewish recipes, but for me, deep in there, just like Ari brought up, he's taking the chicken liver from his grandma. I want to take her recipes with me.
Uh-huh.
I shared a special bond with her, because she had a friend growing up that was a Jewish girl,
Mhm.
and everything about they used to do, at the farm, working hard, having fun. Like she shared all those with me. She took me to the Budapest Jewish Quarter, but then sadly, her friend was taken away in front of her eyes
Wow.
in the center of the city, and she did not return. And so from that moment on, she kept her memory alive.
Yeah.
She had a necklace. She still has a little picture of them in her room. So that started that love for me towards Jewish culture.
Yeah.
Um, as I was growing, maturing and everything, I grew that curiosity of what is this culture really about. Traveled through Budapest a lot because of tennis, so I started exploring it, learning history, um, and it just created such a special love and bond, for me with the culture and my grandma, that I just want people to kind of feel that,
Yeah, I think
That
that the way,
connection.
that connection of a fun memory of a generation past, like a very big generational change that
Yeah.
happened in Hungary. I'm Jewish, as far as by blood back in the day. Completely non-practicing Jewish family, not even close. And so a lot of like our recipes have foundational pieces of Jewish recipes behind them. And so I think that food for me has always been that kind of instant time traveler back to something. So I think it's probably very similar for your grandmother and then to have passed on with you. Do you remember what her friend's name was at all?
Her name was, I think, Elizabeth.
Okay. Because
Just
I
like
always
my
I
my
like the names. They
mom's.
just mean that's my mum's name. So
Yeah,
there
my
you make
mom's
me.
name is Elizabeth too.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go. Perfect. I think that that's that bit where that person gets to live again. Their memories, those stories get to come back, and they come back
Yeah.
through the food and the flavors and what those are. And so, are these most of these recipes primarily from your grandmother that they stem from those specific recipes she passed on to you? Have you changed them? Have they adjusted at all?
I did not change them.
Okay.
Most of them are from her. Yes. She shared a little cookbook with me,
Yeah.
and it's funny how she would be at the long table making up stuff, and her and I, it's like, oh yeah, it's totally Hungarian Jewish, and the rest of the family is like, no, this is not Jewish, and we are like, no, we don't know what you're talking about.
Sure.
That's totally Hungarian Jewish. So those moments, just live in me, and I kept the recipe as it is. And when I visited a restaurant in Rosenstein in
Yeah.
Budapest, the Rosenstein restaurant, which is world famous actually, I tried to compare their menu with my grandmother's recipe, and then what would like connect, what would be very similar. So I kind of like studied it.
Yeah.
But to be honest, there's nothing really much different.
Okay.
So it was
That's
like it's,
amazing.
an easy
Yeah.
connection decision to make.
When she wrote those recipes and you got that recipe book, what do they look like? Like how detailed of a method or weights and measures? Because I remember a lot of our OG recipes in our family are more suggestive than telling you how to do it. It's more of this is kind of the gist of what you're going to do, and really the recipe was passed on person to person, and the written recipe was more of like a reminder. It wasn't really like the how. It was more of like, yeah, you remember this? You did this thing. Is that a little bit more how the recipes are written, or are they quite detailed?
Hers are I feel fall in between.
Okay.
Um,
So do they have
she
some weights and measures and stuff in
yeah
them? Okay, well
yeah
that's
weights and measure. Like I would say like this big of a book,
uh huh.
and no colors or anything, handwritten,
Yeah.
but her handwriting was really pretty and everything, very organized, and yeah.
That's amazing. I don't know about you, Marcy, but like any handwritten recipes that go back like pre-mother, pre my
Yeah.
mum, are all just like, and you kind of throw some stuff together, and here's the gist. And you
Right.
should remember what I told you in person, and that's how the recipes go for you. Is that true
Right.
for like your?
Typically, it was more about paying attention in the kitchen while the
Sure.
recipe was being carried out. Like, we would have the recipe in front of us, but it was more like, okay, but I'm throwing in a pinch of this and a dash of that.
For sure.
Yeah.
So you had talked about the stew earlier as one of the dishes that you were really excited about. What makes this specific stew maybe something that the folks that are going to come to the dinner or everyone who's listening to the podcast right now feel so it'll be a standout, something they want to go back and cook again?
That was the first thing my grandparents taught me to make.
Mhm.
I was probably about 9, 10 years old. And so that's one of the reasons it feels special.
Yeah.
You know how to make a stew, the nokkedli, the spätzle for it. And it does connect with Jewish as well.
Yeah.
Because there is a very inspiring story about a Jewish family, how they loved Hungarian cuisine, and they found the stew authentic and easy to make. So they made up the dish as well, but they made it with rice instead.
Okay.
So there's like a connection of Hungarian Jewish. So for me personally, those are all just very special things. And then I, get to learn it and come away, far away from home, and bring that with me to an organization, that's so open and kind, and make that, have people taste it and give me feedback on it. It's just
Can you give us like
it's
the
all the specials
like a
in it.
2-second version of the recipe and how it goes? Like what's the method?
Can you explain what no cuddly is to
Yeah,
me?
you
Right,
just said a
'cause
bunch of
you
words
said-
that while I might be, got you,
Right.
our listeners 100% not. My wife will listen to this and will have many, many questions.
'Cause she did say rice instead of no cuddly.
She did.
And I'm curious what that means.
So the Hungarian version would be the beef stew, which is the stew chunks that you cut up to like little tiny small pieces.
Hmm.
Depending on how old the beef is, we usually simmer it for about 2 hours on onions, garlic, cumin, paprika, tomatoes, peppers.
Is that all sauteed down first and then the beef gets added? Is there any flour that gets put onto the beef at
No.
all? No flour at all. So
No.
no starch being added. Okay. So we've sauteed our vegetables a little bit. We've added our beef and cooked it. What stock are we adding to it? Some more beef stock or is it
Nothing.
nothing?
No.
Okay.
The onions, garlic, cumin, peppers, tomatoes, and the paprika
Mhm.
just gives it all flavor. And pepper as well that I put into it. So while that's cooking, we will make up the nokkedli, which is known, in Germany, Austria, everywhere, spätzle.
Yep.
Um,
My one of my most favorite things.
I love it. I eat it with
I make it all the
anything.
time. Yeah. It's my go-to. I'd rather have that.
very
But
easy to
if you
make.
took away pasta and left me spätzle, I'd be very happy in my world
I've,
forever and a
I've
day.
had Sophie's and it's delicious.
Ooh, we could have a spätzle off downstairs. You got the grater? I've got the grater downstairs on the hood right now in the kitchen. We can go right now.
You
What?
just need eggs to it, flour,
Yep.
a little bit of salt, add water to it.
Any nutmeg?
No.
No nutmeg in it.
I
Okay.
don't.
So this is your starch that you're adding. Is it the no? I'm gonna butcher this.
Nokkedli.
No kedli. Is that what's thickening the liquid in this
Yeah.
stew? Okay.
And the liquid, you said there's no stock added. So we've got our beef onions. They've been cooked down. They're sweated. So they're just cooking very slowly.
Do you add water or?
We add water.
You're adding
You add-
water.
okay,
Okay.
yeah.
So you're
So-
making a stock from those things.
Yeah.
Then you've got your spätzle. I'm going to call it spätzle because then I can't get in trouble. You can correct me every time. You've made it, blanched it by itself, or you putting it straight into the stew. So you
No,
make
it's separate. So I
completely
would
separate.
make up the dough. I made this so many times where I'm able to fill out the dough,
Yeah.
where I don't have to like say, oh, this is how many cups I'm gonna use. I just fill it
Oh.
out with my hands.
Make my eye twitch just a little bit. Okay.
then,
I'm gonna put you with
Just
some
for
gram
home.
scales. I've had people like that before, and I literally stand next to them. They grab another handful. I'm like, dump that in that bucket. I'm gonna weigh it. Do it again. Every time they add something, like, you're gonna weigh this right now before I add it because I need the recipe down to the gram.
This is just for home purposes.
Sure. So when you've made your, sorry, gonna say it, spätzle, is it a pretty loose dough? It's not super firm, right? Or is
No,
yours?
it's not loose. It needs to be firm enough so that when you put it on a grater,
Yep.
or if somebody doesn't have one, you can use spoon.
You can find them just if you want to, everyone else out there. You can get spätzle graters out there on Facebook Marketplace. People don't know what they are, and they sell all the time.
Do you know what I used to do? I used
You're
to
going to say hotel pan with one of those perforated pans.
perf pan.
Yeah, perf
Yeah.
pans. They
Yeah.
work great.
They were great. You just push them through straight into the water.
Yeah,
Pop, pop.
I think what I like about an actual Tabitha actually brought me one because I love spätzle so much. Is the size of the hole is a little bigger, and then it fits perfectly on a good sized pot, and so then it's a lot more less intimidating. 100%. If I was doing it at the Roadhouse, perf pan,
Perf pan.
and we're talking like a full size hotel pan. It's a steamer tray basically, and you work the dough through it. So your dough's a little firm, and you said it was just eggs, flour.
Salt and water.
salt
Just
and
a little
water.
bit of water. Just so that the dough doesn't get too hard.
See, I think in the spätzle I usually I'm adding semolina for me at least 100%. So no semolina in there, just straight flour. What kind of flour? Just all-purpose?
All-purpose, yeah.
Okay. And so you've blanched that separately, salted water, cooked, and then into ice bath afterwards?
No, I boil water, hot water, salty water.
Yep.
Put a little bit of oil, olive oil in there. And when the water boils, you start
The grating?
your workout.
Yep.
The grating. And then once it all rises up, you rinse it out, put a little bit of oil on it so it doesn't dry out, and you serve it fresh.
Okay. So now I'm going to look at Marcy. Marcy, do you saute your spätzle afterwards in lots of butter? That was a no roll of the head.
I've only made spätzle once, and it was
What?
It was in an industrial kitchen, and I was making it for.
See, I
comida,
always
so-
forget. Chef Marcy can come back to us all the time. So usually for us, when we do it here at the farm, we'll do exactly the same thing. We don't ice bath it, we oil it,
Mhm.
but then we'll re-saute it in a very hot pan with oil and butter, and then it fluffs up.
I
So
do that
then-
at home.
Yeah.
Because I like it when it's crispy.
Yeah,
and
me too.
then I put like all sorts of.
So
I've
you,
done that with
stuff on
gnocchi.
yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that in our past episode,
We
right?
did,
That
yep.
I sauteed my gnocchi.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think when we talk about those specials, so you've got it's in oil, it's cooled down a little bit, then you've added it to the stew and in it. So we've had beef, cumin, onions, paprika in there. That's cooked down with the water, stewed, beef's become tender. What else are we doing to finish the stew afterwards? Anything else that happens in there?
No, nothing. You just wait for the water. Once you feel that the beef is tender and soft, because that's like
Yeah.
the idea of the whole dish, and then you taste the sauce. Then you just have the water cook down.
Have you
And then
toasted the
it's
cumin
over.
seeds or ground them, or are they whole?
Ground them.
Ground them? Have
Yeah, it's
toasted
actually
before?
Chef Jess at the Roadhouse that helped me with
Okay.
that when I was making it for our specials.
And so that stew's cooked down. I've added the spätzle as I'm going to go to serve it. Anything finishing it with? Any fresh herbs or anything that you would
Fresh
be?
herbs, yeah.
What
just
herbs would you put over it?
I think Chef Bob used parsley for it.
Okay.
Firstly.
Yep.
And then not everybody, but me, I
Sure.
would put sour cream on
Okay.
with the
Everything comes back to sour cream in this podcast.
sour cream.
Everything's a goddamn sour cream
Which
world.
Danny
Now I'm going to have to say I
loves,
swore in this podcast because I just said it.
Listen to our recently published pierogi
Yeah.
episode, and you'll learn more about what
we
we
did
like.
talk about it in the pasties one though. I think we avoided it in the pasties.
I wasn't there for the pasties.
Maybe
one,
it's
though,
like
but
every third episode is something to do with sour cream.
we-
Okay.
We talked a lot about sour cream in the
What is it? So the spätzle's in it. It's not separate. It's mixed
put it
into the whole thing.
next to the
Next to
stew.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else served with it? Would you normally have bread or any other pieces? So sour cream, you definitely said. Finish with an herb like
Sour
parsley.
cream, herb, a little piece of tomato or pepper, like the yellow waxed pepper,
Okay.
but like a round-ish would go well on it.
Okay.
And bread, absolutely. I would put the bread into the sauce and just
Okay.
heat
And
it
so
up.
I've heard you said something about stuffed cabbages. That's
stuffed
going in the
cabbages.
smash.
And I did want to mention really quick that the stew that Sophie just described is a special on our menu right now
It's
for the
on
month
right now.
at the Roadhouse for the month of November. We're serving it with potatoes currently, not the nokadli.
Do you want
But
me to
it's
make a batch of spats so I can send it back with you today?
I would always eat spätzle. I would always eat it. So Sophie, throughout this process of preparing for dinner, has been practicing, of course, making dumplings, making the pasta for her fish soup.
Yep.
The other day, I got some good video of her making her stuffed cabbage, which we'll talk about in a second. At the bakehouse, working on some of the desserts that will be on there. And I think the process of this, because we usually for these special dinners we bring in external guests, right?
Yep.
People who are experts in their field, have written cookbooks, run restaurants, or are renowned chefs at what they do. Sophie works for Zingerman's. She worked for the deli first, right? And then made her way over to the Roadhouse last year. And so throughout this process, even before we really sat down and started having the conversation for this dinner, has really kind of had a vision for this about, wanting to connect people specifically with Hungarian Jewish cuisine. And I think it speaks to the beauty of our culture at Zingerman's and what we can do to kind of like help you develop that passion and teach you along the way. And so she has been meeting with all these different managing partners. Because Zingerman's also has a huge focus on Jewish cuisine, right? Particularly Ashkenazi. The bakehouse has, this keen interest in Hungarian desserts. They have been for well over a decade now, since 2011.
It's been a deep passion project of
been a
Amy.
deep-
I mean, I think that comes from a little bit of us. Again, we're a Jewish deli as a foundation of our organization. We do a lot more than that as far as Zingerman's goes. It's not all Jewish food, but it's definitely been that driver into different cuisines. And Hungarian desserts from the bakehouse have been there for a long time, and they've done an exceptionally good job.
Well, they fly over there. They go to Hungary, they go to Transylvania,
Yep.
and they connect with people, and they learn their recipes and their stories and bring them back over here to Ann Arbor. But particularly the Hungarian Jewish desserts too, because they are trying to revive that tradition. Sophie's story about her grandmother's friend was poignant because much of the Jewish population in Hungary was decimated after World War II. Then you had communist Hungary, where nationalist food became a thing, and so you lost kind of more of those traditional recipes that were centuries old. So reconnecting people with those stories and those traditions are so critical right now.
Well, I think when you talk about like the Jewish history that's out in the European foyer of the countries, it's one of those webs that have remained pretty stable until basically the Second World War. So as a way to reconnect a lot of communities, because the Jewish community spread very far and wide through Europe, and those cuisine changes were adjusted regionally when they went to Spain, when you were in France, when you were in Hungary, because the Hungarian Empire was an empire. Like pre-World War One, it was a huge empire and one of the oldest empires in Europe. I think what's one of my fun, useless facts that have been trapped in my head. So a lot of people think a lot of European foundational food is French classical cuisine. I'm French classically trained. I love it very much.
Same.
Yeah. World of wonders. But French classical cuisine really comes from Italy. It was married into the French royal family because there was an Italian.
The Medicis.
Yep, they married them in.
Yeah.
And what's super interesting about the Italian food is it really comes from Russia. And so all the Italian food really comes from Russia. And Russia is really the Austro-Hungarian Empire stretch that gets in there. And so if you want to talk about a lot of foundational regional foods that have spread through Europe, they came out of that community. Yeah. So maybe not Hungary specifically, but that empire was where a lot of our foods we identify now have their foundations much more into that community. And it's not where in Europe we look. We don't look into Eastern Europe as being where we think of our foundational foods come from, but 100% do.
We don't. And what's interesting about that, when you say Austro-Hungarian, so that was right around the time where coffee houses were becoming a
Yep.
place where people socialized and had intellectual discussions, just like Italy and France. And when we think about coffee houses, we think about Italy and France typically. We don't think about Hungary. But this is very much a prominent thing. And this is where a lot of the Hungarian desserts that we are now talking about, particularly at Zingerman's Bakehouse, but are becoming popular again, are
Do you love me the
from
Rio
that
Yancey
time.
cake? I love that
Rio
Yancey.
Yancey, the Dobos Torta, which is going to be on the menu, came about during that time period from Joseph Dobos, and the reason it stuck around was because the Emperor of Austria and King of Hungary loved it.
Yep.
Right, and what's not to love with that crispy caramel topping? But it was served at coffee houses, and people enjoyed like this little 2-bite delicacy. So preserving those stories, like from centuries ago, I think is where this is the focus, right? And it has been a focus of these special events for years now, particularly for the Roadhouse. But what has been a beautiful thing about this process in this journey for Sophie is that she's learning all of this from the, the managing partners at Zingerman's. They're helping her not only tell her story and shape it, but teaching her along the way, here's some recipes that, you can also use for your dinner. Here's some processes that you can use. I think it was Charlie Frank, who helped you with the spätzle.
Yeah, the pasta.
Yeah,
pasta.
you've been out at the bakehouse. I know that doing the
Right.
studies. I think like this a lot of our, as far as England's go with our Jewish connection into food, it is just like that deep rooted web of food. And it's not about it having to be Jewish food. It's just where a lot of those connections are made and changed over time. And I think when you've talked about like the dishes that are going to be on the menu, I know we're going to talk about stuffed cabbage, which is one of my favorite things to do. I love cabbage. It's going to be the other thing, sour cream and cabbage. We're going to make that a thing. I think I said before we came on the podcast that way back when the farm opened, we had originally done our first dinner was called fried walleye and cherry pie dinner. And it was, G. Hay was there and I was there. And so you got a Brit and a Korean. And I said at that dinner, 200 years, 100 years from now, there's going to be this big push of Korean and British food in Michigan. And people are going to be like, why? And I'm going to, because it was a person and a person made that change. And it's the same reason there's a large German community, because a bunch of German immigrants moved and they stayed and they put their, they didn't assimilate. They wanted to hold on to their memories of their histories and their foods. And so the same thing for you, I'd say, Sophie, as you do this dinner, is to really sing those truths, because we've definitely, for Zingerman's, we've experienced an awful lot of the dessert menus and treats that the bakehouse have shared with us. But this is the opportunity to kind of see that savory side of the Hungarian food. When I think of the Hungarian food, I do think more of the Austro-Hungarian Empire kind of piece. And it's a much more spiced, I mean, you said cumin, and cumin is not, you're normally talking North Africa coming into the southern Spain. Cumin kind of dies out then as it travels up into the rest of Europe back in the day. You had the spice route, and so cumin did get to you and it stayed there, and it didn't really travel a lot more into the rest of Europe. So you had a lot more of those fun spices to play with rather than the rest of us in Europe.
Yeah, fun fact actually, when I was writing up the stew for Ari this weekend, is we discovered that paprika was in Hungary up until the 18th century.
It's relatively a new thing,
So-
100%. Yep.
Yeah, so that was kind of interesting that because they made it without the paprika, but once paprika came into Hungary in the 18th century, that's when people really started to
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
use it. And
Can I ask you a quick question? Because I grew up with my mother cooking what she thought was Hungarian goulash.
Uh, see,
and it was heavy on the paprika. Is paprika like a traditional ingredient in goulash?
it is, yeah.
Okay.
So, to my knowledge, at first in Hungary, they did not want to accept the goulash and the stew and all that and the paprika for some reason. They didn't feel it was good enough, and then the chefs and cooks and everything, they pushed for it to the point where it eventually became a national dish, and it is considered a national, like, what do you call, like, food item.
Sure. Are you a goulash fan?
Am I?
Yeah. No, be honest.
Yeah.
Okay. Marcy?
Meh.
Yeah, me too.
But I think it's because
Have you had
I-
bad goulash?
well, yeah, no, I grew up thinking this is what it was,
Sure.
and it wasn't. It was an Americanized, Midwesternized version
100%.
of it. Whereas when I did have, okay, so Sophie mentioned I've been to Dumbo Bar. I went when I was in high school.
Very nicely pronounced, by the way. I will not
It is
repeat you.
beautiful.
It's beautiful, a small village in the country. Best ice cream I've ever had in my entire life. Best ice cream. Nothing has topped it since then. And beautiful, like relaxing hot springs. But I did have goulash while I was there, and I was like, wow, this is absolutely 100% nothing like what I grew up with. You know,
Sure.
and it was good. Still not my favorite from everything that I ate while I was there, but it was much better than what I grew up with. I would
100%. I
say.
think that it's like when you've had liver as a kid. I'm sure there aren't any kids having liver anymore, but when I was growing up as a kid, we'd have rubbery liver at my grandmother's house. And I was like, oh no, fresh, well cooked liver is delicious.
Right.
But terrible liver is terrible liver. I think goulash is. So goulash is not on the menu.
Goulash is not. It is different from the stew. And the only difference between goulash and the stew is that goulash, you make it like a soup. At least in Hungary,
Yeah, yeah.
it's supposed to be a soup. You add potatoes to it, carrots to it. You
Which
do-
again, those weren't in Europe. That's an American vegetable. I do love how we like. Oh, it's my traditional foods of Europe. I'm like,
Right,
no,
it's just-
potatoes were not a thing. Like
No,
that's
no.
the Irish were not eating potatoes in the 1300s. That was not a thing that was out
But
there.
one thing I'm gonna tell you that I would have loved to put on the menu. I'm still a little bit heartbroken, but
Just sneak
it
it on as an
doesn't-
extra.
it
Just
doesn't-
make it and
yeah,
don't tell anyone.
Yeah, I think it's too late, but a schnitzel.
Okay, sure.
I love
'Cause
schnitzel. I do.
Germany is my favorite country.
I got
Next to
you, guy. If
Brazil
you want
and-
somebody to make schnitzel, I mean, my business partner is Tabitha. She has German foundation. She worked up in
She's
Franken.
from Frankenmuth.
Yeah, she's from Frankenmuth. She originally from Alaska, but a lot of German heritage. Her husband, John, who works down in the kitchen below us, makes the best schnitzel you've ever had. That man can make amazing soups,
Yeah.
but his schnitzel is off the chain perfect. And we get some wonderful chickens. You could just sneak it in as like a little amuse, like make a tiny one. No one's gonna judge you.
It's a small one.
Just a surprise.
Yes,
Yeah,
100%.
like, I
Just a
felt
little
like it
one
wasn't,
biter.
like truly Hungarian traditional.
Yes,
the
Do
schnitzel,
it.
But it's
No one's gonna. Marcy,
no
I
one's
give
gonna
her permission.
complain.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
one's gonna
No
complain
one's
about an
gonna
extra
complain
dish.
about like a bite of schnitzel.
Yeah, it's your muse. You're like, I just wanted to get you warmed up. Here it is.
And it could you could honestly just introduce it, when you introduce the menu and say, "Hey, I know this isn't Hungarian, but it is one of my favorite dishes, so here you go. I made it for you."
So we talked about stuffed cabbages. I want to touch on them. So what's different for you? Because there's a lot of stuffed vegetables that are in a lot of European, East Asian, North African foods. What's special about this as a stuffed cabbage dish for you? Like, what
Stuffed
makes it
cabbage?
stands out for you?
Well, interesting talking about how dishes originate. Stock cabbage comes from Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't come from Hungary. It comes from Turkey. So everybody is making it on their own way. But stock cabbage for me puts me back to the family Christmases I used to have with my family, my grandparents, my cousins. Everybody in one house. It's a very traditional Christmas dish that we put on the table with bread, soak it into the sauce. But I don't feel the cabbage really has anything Jewish to it for me. It's more like my parents' recipe for it and just the love behind it and how it brings a family together for that time.
Sure.
We make it with sauerkraut on the bottom layer for the pot,
Mhm.
and then we cook the cabbage in warm water so that it softens.
Yep.
Cut out the thick veins from it so you can roll up the cabbage itself.
Which cabbage are you using? Just a large green head cabbage, Savoy cabbage.
Just like I'm not entirely sure what
Okay.
the Roadhouse has, but just large.
Okay.
Sure, I'll just put it out there. Cut it up, Sophie. But yeah, and then the meatballs itself, originally speaking, would have bacon in it, uh, some sort of a smoked meat, and sautéed onions, salt, pepper, a little bit of paprika, rice, and then eggs. And then you mix that all together, um, roll roll it up into a little ball, and then roll it up, close it. You layer it as one layer of the cabbage, little bit of sauerkraut, little bit of hint of paprika, another layer. Um, we do add a small piece of tomato and pepper into it just for additional taste. And then with Hungarian, we would also add like small piece of pork rib because you would put one on each plate
Okay.
as a decoration. Um, and then the top layer you cover it with sauerkraut and then fill it up with water and basically cook it for like hour and a half to two.
Okay.
For the dinner, because it is Jewish as well, we are not adding the bacon to it or anything pork. We're going to do beef, and then Chef Bob is thinking about some kind of a smoked meat, maybe ham or something, to add as an additional little
Okay.
decoration
So
to
it's
the dish.
you could take that off if you weren't in the
Right,
to the Jewish side of it.
right.
So I think like when I think of that dish, it sounds very for me like an English dish where you would have your smoked meats that were in the chimney. It's a way to take this something you preserved in the year and bulking it out with our rices and our other things, putting into our cabbage and putting out there. I think that it's kind of interesting when you talk about rice. Clearly not a big crop in Hungary. And again, that's one of those crops that would have been imported. And you being on that right location on the map
Yeah.
for those things to come through in through Hungary as they go to the rest of Europe. And as it traveled, it didn't travel as far because I mean, rice it's not a big thing in the majority of the rest of Europe as far as its history of where it is. Without potatoes, it probably should have been, but for us, we were living in our terrible turnip land as far as the UK was back in the day. You talked a little bit about some noodles, so not the spätzle, but you've been making some noodles at the bakehouse, and that's to go in your fish soup. Um, so where you are in Hungary, is there open water? Is there lakes, or whereabouts? You're close. So what kind of fish would it have been as far as local fish from where you were in
So if
Hungary?
you make it in Hungary, we have Lake Balaton,
Okay,
which is basically our sea because it's one of the biggest lakes in Europe. It's huge.
is it like
Um,
Great Lake size, or are we talking like medium sized?
like
Because
Great
we
Lake,
got some pretty big lakes in the state of Michigan, so
yeah, it's like I don't
you can lie. It's okay. No one's gonna
700
fact check.
kilometers long.
Okay, all right.
It's long. It's
Okay.
big, but it's
Miles.
Miles, I like that we
I
went to
did-
kilometers. It's okay. I appreciate the
Sorry.
kilometers. We'll
I've
stay
been
European for
converting
this
so
podcast.
much lately from like liter to gallon to this and that. As my mind is like, okay, I can't take it
No,
anymore.
just stay in the leaders. Just fight. You're gonna fight the metric system into the world. It's gonna be fine. So, what kind of fish were coming out of that lake?
In Hungary, it would be carp,
Okay.
and
Wow.
then
Okay.
perch,
Okay.
pike.
And those would be all the things that would go into this
Yes.
fish stew.
Yeah, a combination of those.
Because pike's tough. It's very bony.
Yeah.
Carp is not a
It's
gen-
not a good fish here.
No.
I'm trying to tell Ari,
Yeah. Mm-mm.
please do not, because I know people here do not.
No,
like
I mean
carp.
most people like will fish carp for fun.
For sport.
Yeah, it
because
is
they're so
not a tasty
sensitive.
fish. No deliciousness in the carp delicious
They,
world.
they are so sensitive. Like they feel your vibration of your footsteps. So you
Yes.
have to be very crafty
I-
with
I
catching the carp.
I have carp pictures of me. I used to carp fish way back in my youth. BC, before children. I was a carp fisherman. Can't carp fish anymore. Okay, so we've got those three types of fish. What's going into this stew for you? For this?
For the fish soup,
Yeah.
the fish soup is it's very simple to make. So you have all the lake fishes that you put in there, but the key thing with the fish soup is that you have to put the onions in, and then your spices like pepper, and paprika, and you put water on it, and you cook that for an hour with a little bit of like small pieces of the fish just to give it an extra taste. But you cook that for like an
Are
hour.
you using any of the bones, or were the bones used back in the day to make stock?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You can put that part into that um like base of the fish soup,
Hmm.
but then you cook that for like an hour, hour and a half. Um and once that's done, you have to basically scrape that out so that
The
there's
fish.
nothing left in there, the fish, or you can just grind it down. Once that's done, you put it back in,
Yeah.
put the rest of the fish, you cook it for another 20 minutes, and the dish is done.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of like European fish soups are like that. I
Yeah.
think people are a little weirded out, but like we would make fish soup back in the day. I ran a restaurant called Fisher's, um, and it is the whole fish, bones and all. You make this kind of broth stock
Stock.
out of it, and then you blitz the entire thing.
Yeah.
And so bones and all,
Yeah.
it disappears into it and breaks down.
Right, because you're not going to end up crunching in the bones.
No, no, not at all.
Once they're pulverized, it becomes the body of the stock.
Do you know what fish we're using for the
I'm
dinner?
not sure yet
Okay.
because we don't know what fish is going to be available a week before.
Okay.
I scooped around, bushes and other places
Yep.
just to kind of like feel it out. Like, do you guys know if we're going to have this? It has to be appropriate for Jewish as well.
Sure.
What
So we're going
about
to know like a week before.
what about Monaghan's?
Yeah, Monaghan seafood.
I went by there too, but they didn't really have much available. That
Okay.
was a few, like 2 months ago.
Okay.
But
Maybe check back now that we're close.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Is that finished with anything other than the fish going into it at the end?
So one thing I forgot to add that we add the Hungarian waxed spicy paprika pepper into it as well. Um,
Does it create that like that oily level on
Yeah.
top of it? Yeah, yeah. I love that. That's a very like North African style soup, and I love that stuff.
yeah, and then you make the pasta for it, which is a unique pasta because it's the shape of like matches.
Hmm.
It's a very thin pasta.
I know that you've got to be doing that with Charlie because Charlie, who started the candy company at Zingerman's, he is a pasta-holic. That man has a problem. Like,
Yeah, she worked with Charlie on the pasta, and then her last practice round, she was by herself at Bake doing it, and I got some nice video of her. But it was just fascinating how thin she
Yeah.
was cutting this pasta. It was so delicate, and like her knife was very sharp.
Yeah.
It's like a work of art because you make up the dough. You have to let
So
it
what's in your dough?
eggs, flour.
Is
little
it
bit of
whole egg,
salt.
yolk only?
Yeah,
Is it whole egg or is it
whole
yolk?
egg.
Whole egg. Okay.
Yeah.
Pasta flour, so 00.
I'm using all-purpose flour. I tried
Okay.
a few different ones, and then with Amy, and then we decided on all-purpose because the texture of the dough was just better and smooth, more smooth.
Okay.
But and then you
You got salt or oil in there as well in the
Salt.
dough? Just salt. Okay.
yeah. And then you make up the dough. You rest it for an hour. Um, if I really wanted to make it perfect and good, I would rest it for an hour, and then roll it out very thin. Cut it up into like this. I forgot English. I don't know what
You're all good.
shape. And then you cut it up into like tiny little matches size.
Were you hand rolling it or past the machine rolling?
No hand.
Hand rolling. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're rolling into very thin sheets and then cutting into matchsticks, or what it is.
Yeah.
Are they matchstick size, like length and thickness,
Yeah. I have a bag that my mom sent to me. So
that
I
you brought
open-
with
I
me just for
open it
now?
up. So I would put that pasta next to it.
Okay.
What really I'm looking for, and I'm trying to get to that.
Do you know why it was that size?
I don't actually. Nobody knows.
I'm gonna guess because back in the good old days when I started in the industry, it's about the spoon that it was served on.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't fall off the spoon. So I bet it's the size of whatever spoon that soup was served on or wherever that first was started. So we used to have, you couldn't have a pasta that would hang over a soup spoon
Mhm.
if it laid on there right. So it had to fit within all the dimensions. It couldn't be width or size. But I would bet the length of that spoon that it was served in wherever it started was that.
Yeah, the pasta is special to me because I mentioned it before in one of our podcasts how my family on my dad's side had a bread factory and they used to make their own bread and pasta and the very first time I met Charlie, he's extremely passionate.
100%.
I absolutely
That man loves
love the
pasta.
guy.
Sure.
And
He's got 3 kids and makes homemade pasta for the kids at home every single night. The man's out of his mind.
yeah, and I asked him, I was like, tell me the chances of me learning this, like by the dinner, like just be honest, like, do I have a shot at it? And he's like, oh, do I just want to like bring it in, buy it, ready to go, and and then he told me, no, if it's in your heart, like you really, really want it, you can make it happen. You just have to put the practice in and make it every day and reach out and ask. So that was really, I don't know, it's special.
Do you, once you've made the dough, are you kneading it for amount of time before you then start to rest it?
So, after my meeting with Chef yesterday, the plan would be to start the dough on Sunday, 2 days before
Yep.
dinner. Make up the dough, rest it, and then the next day, Monday, to cut up the pasta, and then just have it ready.
So normally when I make pasta dough,
Tuesday.
I make the dough, but then I will knead it for a good 20 minutes before. So I've mixed it all together. It's formed a dough, but then I am now working that gluten. With using AP, I'm guessing you're not trying to overwork the gluten at that point. You're not trying to
No.
get stretchy.
No.
That's not the goal of this kind of pasta. Okay. So it rests and then you'll cut it because it will dry just fine into that world of what it is for you. Okay.
Yeah, it's very helpful, just like Marcia said, to get the help and from everybody at the Z Cub and the Roadhouse of how can I learn and make it happen the way I would like it to. So that's just extremely helpful for me to have that talk with Chef, just to be mindful of the dough, of the gluten, how it works, how you want it prepped, how like even like time it. Charlie advised me like do it once before the dinner, just feel it out, and time yourself, and it's really cool. The fish soup though, I picked the Szegedi style for the fish soup.
What does that mean?
Because Szeged is a city in Hungary, and my mom's side is from Szeged,
Okay.
and that's one of the most, I would say, traditional fish soups in Hungary. So that's why I picked that.
When you think of the other parts of the menu that you've got on there,
Hmm.
what else do you think is like the standout thing? Like, is there some cocktails or wines that we're serving that evening for the menu?
There's a very special wine that we're going to have on the menu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you bring a bottle for me to have today?
I didn't because we haven't.
God
well, I
diggity
don't- Are
darn.
we making it, Sophie, or are we buying it? We're making it. Yeah, we haven't made it yet.
What are we doing?
I am trying to get together with Felipe to possibly make it this Thursday, but Marcia shared a very special recipe, the Corbin Farms recipe, with me, and Kieran's tips on it.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to go with because it's very similar to the one we
The
would
mulled
bake.
wine?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
that we would bake at home.
100%.
It's like
that's
There's-
that's my mummy's recipe.
We're
Aw.
putting it in the nosh too.
Oh,
because-
nice.
Yeah.
So like why I love mulled wine? You got to have heard this story from me. Do you know where mulled wine made its way into my life? My 9-year-old as a child, I would go to school teacher conferences, and there'll be the equivalent of what were crock pots back then, with mulled wine at all the teacher conferences. And as a child, you got to like steal some spiced wine and got to drink it while your parents were being told how terrible you were at school.
Okay.
And so spiced wine to me reminds me of childhood misdemeanors that I was doing at a very young age.
You were breaking the law.
I was breaking the law at school while being told off about the other things I had
Why
done
does
wrong at
this not
school.
surprise
Yeah.
you?
But that's my mum's recipe. So a lot of those spices, it's great. I love some. So it's like a mulled wine. Is there any variation of what you're doing or spices, or do you think you'll go with that recipe?
no, I'm 100% going with that
Okay,
recipe.
so it's wonderful, and that is something you make about a week in advance, and it sits, and it's great.
It's very holiday.
yeah.
It's very holiday. I didn't have mine until I was an adult. My indulgence as a kid was champagne, not mulled wine. But that's a story for another day.
Yeah. We
So-
will go to that story on
we-
another
we
day.
will. So my introduction to it was at Chris Kindlemart. which is a Christmas outdoor market that is very traditional to Eastern Europe, particularly Germany. And we had one in Chicago, and it's something you could sip and warm your hands with while you're walking around in negative 10-degree
Glühwein.
weather.
Glühwein.
Then we had a Swedish intern who introduced me to the Swedish version of it. It's called glögg, and they throw almonds and raisins into the bottom of it.
That's really good too.
Yeah,
I've had that. That's
glögg
really
is
good.
stuff.
Almonds in it is so good.
Yeah,
That's a
'cause
good win.
It just soaks up the
Definitely not good in today's world, but delicious.
Yeah, delicious. But so we are doing the Hungarian version for the dinner, and I'm stoked about it because I do love a good spiced mulled wine, and I can't wait to try Kieran's recipe.
Yeah, so there's so downstairs in the farmhouse, and maybe I'll send you home with it tonight, is my mum's mulled wine pot. So it's a brass pot that sits in front of an open fire, and it literally, when we built the farm, I put a swing arm purely to make clotted cream and mulled wine, and it has to be like over an open fire. It makes for the win. So it's just, might send you home with the pot because there is some magic in that pot that makes it taste better and makes the world a better place. Anything else in that dinner? Any other special little pieces? I know we haven't talked about the dessert. We kind of touched on it briefly. So it's the Dabberstorte that we're doing. Dabberstorte, sorry.
Yeah.
Look at me.
Yeah, the dobosh cake, the floatney,
You know
and
I
then the
love it.
bagely,
Walnut bagely. Oh my goodness.
and then a little
So some of
snow
everything.
cookies.
So not one dessert, 19 desserts.
It'll be a family style platter of bite-sized desserts going to the table, correct? So the dobosh is usually like a 2-biter. The walnut bagely, we'll probably do slices, yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause that's
Amy
a
thought
roll.
about making it like pizza shape kind of thing,
Okay.
and then give like each to every guest.
Yeah. And then tell us a little bit more about the flodny, because flodny,
Is it good? Floatney.
flodny. There's flodny, and then there's kifli.
Yeah, the little
Oh.
smoky flea.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love the
No,
kifli.
It's gonna be the almond version.
Yeah,
But
better be. Mm.
Is it-
yeah, floatney is the most Hungarian Jewish traditional desserts that exists. It started in the 1930s, I believe, in Budapest, when people started making it.
Yeah.
I think they were making it for Purim originally. and
Okay.
it became a big hit. It is like a couple of layers of walnuts, poppy seed, and I think apricot or plum
Mhm.
jam.
Yep.
Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit of gerbo, which is another cool dessert in Hungary, but it's delicious. And
It's
one of the
fantastic.
best Hungarian Jewish desserts. The kifli, it is something both my grandma used to make. It's just, I don't know. I'm trying not to tear up, but
You can tear up. It's
I
okay.
can, see
It's
that
only that you're
how
on camera.
they
It's
were
fine. We'll
making
have
with
it
their
forever.
own little fingers. It's a
Little
process.
crescents, yeah.
It's a process to make, and standing there, being 7, 8 years old, learning it and everything. It's nice.
I know that on the menu you've got a few side vegetables dishes as well. We've got some of mixed pickled vegetables. You've got my favorite vegetable of all time. You've got beets on there as well. I saw those braised red cabbage. What and how are you braising that? Because out here at the farm we do citrus braised red cabbage. So it's got a lot of booze and lemon, limes, and oranges in it. What is your
So-
braised cabbage?
That's a great question because I just sent the recipe to Chef Bob
Okay, so he's starting to prepare himself for that world.
last night. I just sent it to him.
Yeah,
for those, side. I have not made
Okay.
red cabbage myself.
Okay.
I know it is a process to make it. and you
100%.
have to cook the cabbage and
Yep.
you have all the spices for it. But I myself have not made it, so it's going to be more like a collaboration of work with Chef Bob.
It's red cabbage braise is one of my happy places. I like that there were beets on there. That I think there's a cucumber salad that's on the menu as well for it. I I think it's a pretty substantial menu. Like it's not small amounts of food here. I think it's just limited to 60 folks, right?
65.
65. I used to
And
remember when they
we've
used to just be
sold,
60.
yeah, we've sold about 40 tickets. So I do encourage people to reserve your seats soon.
Yeah, they fly off the shelves right now.
They do, and this one is particularly popular, I think, because it's on December 10th, so it gives people time before the holidays, before they, they're busy with family and their own traditional festivities, but it still can celebrate a holiday feast with us. But then, of course, there's the whole Hungarian connection. What's fascinating about this is Sophie is a door runner at the Roadhouse, and so often talks to guests who come into the restaurant. And when they hear her accent, they ask her where she's from. She has met several Hungarian people in this banner who she's personally invited to this dinner. Anyone who works for Zingerman's and knows Sophie and has heard about the dinner wants to go because they have someone Hungarian they know that they want to bring to the dinner. So it's spreading like wildfire right now. So if you do want to reserve your seat, you would go to zingermansroadhouse.com to the events page. And it is the only special event we have coming up, so it should be very easy to find it. And there's a lovely photo of Sophie holding her, what are they, Lecho?
Nacho taco.
We have not touched on that. That's going to be my big finish of like, wait a minute, guys. You've got tacos on the menu.
We've talked about this glorious traditional.
I know, and then you
holiday
went
feast.
all the other way.
And then we have something that is very different.
So I was going to say, when I left the Roadhouse to come open up the farm, the first seed stock somebody gave me was Hungarian Hochsbach's peppers. It was this lovely lady. Her grandmother, it was the only thing she had with her when she evacuated Europe. And so she was a Hungarian Jew. And she had the seeds in the hem of her dress. And this lady gave me these seeds and said, "Here you go, you can have them." I was like, if these don't grow, I'm doomed. And so I grew them for like 2 years, and we gave back some fresh seed. But they were literally from the Second World War, and they'd been kept. And they actually, like, out of like 25, I think only like 5 of them germinated. But we actually got some Hungarian Hochsbach peppers.
I
back in the
love
day.
that story because
It was real. That was the
yeah.
only thing she came over with.
I don't think people know or understand that when you have heirloom fruits and vegetables in the United States, that's where they came from. It came from people immigrating here,
Yep.
sewing seeds into their clothing so that they could bring those with them, and that's all they had.
Well, that was the thing that person wanted, that they wanted to bring with them, that memory of food, that piece of their history, that pepper that had been cultivated by generations and changed, and because it's all manipulation by humans at some point, and that was the memory of generations of that family growing that specific pepper. So being given that, I was like, well, this is a terrible idea. Good, thanks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if you know local farmers who grow some of these heirloom seeds, it's a small miracle, particularly if they can make them grow in this climate,
Yep.
because sometimes they're coming from places like Italy where they don't belong in the Midwest.
All right. So we're getting to the end of the podcast talking about this dinner. And yes, there is this very interesting picture. So we've got this traditional Hungarian menu at the Roadhouse, these wonderful traditional flavors and dishes, and then there's some tacos. And that's the picture that we chose to demonstrate what the dinner was about. I'm guessing this has some foundation in your travels, because you talked about before that you had traveled through Central and Southern America. I'm guessing that some part of that connects. You got Carolina gold rice. This sounds like a nice mismatch of all of those foods of where you've traveled, kind of coming together in that one dish. Would that be some truth?
Yeah.
Is it just that you really wanted tacos?
How did we decide? Was it this an Ari influence, or was this?
No, it was just me bringing up the idea to Marcy because she knows I love tacos.
Who doesn't love tacos? I love tacos.
She's like, yeah, sure, cool, okay, we're making it. But no, I honestly can't even. It's not a thing in Hungary. It's still just becoming a thing, like tacos and quesadillas and burritos and stuff in Hungary. Lecho is a very traditional dish, which I felt like was more traditional than one other potato dish that I was thinking about putting on. And
So when you say lacho, what do you mean by that?
lecho,
Yeah.
it is a dish basically made up out of peppers, tomatoes, onions, generally speaking, bacon, and then paprika. For the dinner,
No bacon.
No bacon.
Yeah.
However, I added rice to it.
Yeah, you've got
Then
Carolina gold rice that's like cracked rice almost. Is what it's like. It's really delicious.
and then once the dish is done, you add an egg into it. Just cook it in there, and it's like a lecho with
Yeah.
rice and eggs,
I think
basically.
when I said, what would you wake up in the morning the day after? I think this is the dish that the folks that are going to come to that dinner that are most likely to cook some version of this within a week.
It's so easy to make. It
And
is.
It's
very
got
much-
all the right flavors and the smells. You talked about the smells and the flavors. Like this is a really nice lunch, a late dinner when you've got home too late, or it's a breakfast. And it's a mixture of all of them, and it's got the flavors and smells. I think.
Is it and the colors, because if you see the photo, you'll know, because we included a lot of the Hungarian traditional colors in the design for the promotion of this dinner. But you get the reds and the greens and the like beautiful vibrant colors from the flag and from the country in this dish, and that's immediately pops out. And it is, but it's very much like a stew, right? And so we were trying to think of a way to serve this. That was where it's not like you have a stew on a plate, but how can we
I think it's fun. I think it's whimsical. I like that
Yeah.
it's somewhat connected. I mean, whether you planned it or not, I think it's whimsically connected to the fact that you traveled
I
with.
didn't just want to put it on a plate with bread because we're already serving
Yeah,
appetizer
yeah.
with.
You have like
with
94
bread.
things on this menu.
Yeah, I know. My apologies.
No, the kill people with too much food is a good place to be.
Yeah, but I was just trying to think like, what is it that I could make it, more unique with and cute, and I was like, let's put it in. I was home just playing around, like put it in flour tortilla. I was starving for tacos. I suffer an addiction, but but and I was like, oh wow. And I was imagining Roadhouse with the bacon taco. That's one of my favorite.
Yep.
I was like, why don't we make tacos out of it? I mean, it's not like taco is not traditional, but the lecho is. And then Ari was really leaning towards having the lecho on the menu. So I was like, okay, well, let's do that.
I think it's fun in the way that it kind of connects when we talked about Jewish communities in different countries and different travels. This is some evolution of this dish making its way into a taco. I mean, it's fun. I'm sure it's not the first time, but it's kind of a fun. I like the whimsical side of it and the connection.
Sure. And maybe like you're saying, how there's going to be a Korean British fusion.
Me and Jihei are working real hard. I think Jihei's working harder than I am. I'm just quietly here making some meat pies in the corner.
So
Jihei's changing the world.
So why can't we have a Hungarian Mexican fusion?
Yeah.
And Sophie has kicked this off.
So
Yeah.
as we come to the end of today's episode, I guess the thing for me when I think about this menu and I think about the Hungarian experience that people want to have, I think it's interesting that it's relatively new. And I think for an American, when we talk about like the 1800s, that doesn't sound new, but a lot of these flavors are that the Austrian empire is really the foundation, kind of the start of the United States was when these things were happening and these flavors were really taking into the Austro-Hungarian Empire. I think that smell of paprika, if you've not experienced it, it's one that's very pervasive. If you're in southern Spain, North Africa, there's a lot of smoked paprika dishes that are out there. When you think of chorizo, those kind of flavors that prevail through. I think when I look at the dishes, it's more of that comfort, that sense of community that it's going to give you guys. It's definitely a menu that I'm going to leave and need a nap for about 3 days. I do appreciate that you didn't go with one dessert, you went with 4. That's my kind of menu. You've got like 4 different side dishes with 3 different entrees, with a soup, with 2 different appetizers.
Shows the passion I have for food.
Yeah. Kill them with the food.
I'm
It's
always
going to be fine. I guess, is there any last burnings from either of you talking about this or something we'd love folks to know about the dinner or yourself before we sign off for the day? What have you got, Marcy? Marcy's going to pull a pearl of wisdom out of there. I know it.
Something just that sticks in my mind right now. I heard Chef Bob say this on TV the other day. He was on CBS, and it was just a funny little quip. But he said, "If it's good, put it in front of them. Put it in front of the folks." Right.
Yep.
And I feel like that's what we're trying to do here. Like, we have something really good here. from Sophie's, not just the food, but Sophie's story, her background, but the love and the passion that she's put into creating this menu and the food itself. And it's good. So we're going to put it in front of you. And we hope you join us.
It's a good line from Bob. I like that.
I like that too.
No, I think that this isn't where I think people think things come from. I mean, again, from coming from the deli, from being a tennis star, to working out of the deli, to come work at the Roadhouse, as a door runner, to then be spending your nights and weekends and evenings and early mornings at the bakehouse and in the back kitchen testing things and the research to get you to this place of this dinner. I mean, there's a lot of love and passion that's gone into it. I think that if it is good, you should put it in front of people, even if it's a taco. What about you, Sophie? As one last little byline to share with everyone, what would you like everyone to know or want to get? Because there are only 60, you said 65 seats, right, Marcy? And the reality is those are going to be gone. So those poor folks of that 66th person that will not get in there, what would you want them to take from this? Because I mean, the menu's out there right now. You've got some of the dishes on a special. So the stew we can all go and experience as of tonight. What would you want them to know, for you, Sophie?
Well, I think it would be good for them to know that we are also working on a very special Instagram video that Marcy is working on, with pictures and videos, and I'm going to try to talk in front of the camera.
You've been doing that all
I'm gonna do
night.
my best.
You've been filmed
Can't
for the
promise
last
anything,
hour and
but
10 minutes solidly.
This was your practice run.
Yeah, this is your practice run of what it
Yeah.
is. So is that going to have some of your history, some of the pictures from your past and the family? Will you get some of your
Pictures
grandma?
that Marcy took of me making the pasta and
Okay.
the cabbage, and me talking to people at the roadhouse at the door, like a combination of everything. And I feel that's very special. And just I don't know it. Um, I'm trying to take it all in.
Okay.
'Cause I'm feeling all the emotions and everything around it. It's very touching when I have people coming up to me, noticing me on the flyer, which is makes me shy and I blush a lot and everything. But there's a deep little vision and dream you have inside of you when you leave your home and your family. To bring that with you, you carry that with you, everything that they taught you. And I don't have my grandparents anymore.
I
But
think you do.
wanna,
This menu is that. That is that
yeah,
connection back to them.
yeah. But being able to bring that love that I had for the last 34 years in me, for that culture, and being able to share that with people, that's very meaningful. And I just I appreciate everybody for putting all the work and energy into this dinner. And like really there's many people that are helping and supportive, but I would like them to see all the diligent work that was put into the flyers and the website, and because it has the traditional flowers on it, and people notice it, and people come up to me how it brings them back to their roots and how cute it is and everything. And that's all, Marcy. So thank you.
That being said, we're at the end of today's podcast, my lovelies. We'll see you all really soon. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, my lovelies, for tuning in and listening to today's episode of the Heartland Hot Dish podcast. Hit that like button, subscribe, and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us grow and reach more listeners just like you. Until next time, keep savoring the flavors of the Heartland and sharing the love for this vibrant community. Take care and stay connected.